My name is Kyle Steele, and I'm running for Norman City Council, Ward 6 in the upcoming election cycle, and this is a quick summary of what my stance is on flock cameras. Just for some quick disclaimers, since I am running a campaign based off of transparency, these are my personal opinions on the flock cameras, just from my research that I have done. It's intended to be used by my campaign, which is Kyle for Ward 6 2026, but anyone could use this information provided here as long as you credit me correctly. And then if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or wish to reach out to me, you can go to my website, KyleForNorman.com, or email me at KyleForNorman@gmail.com. So to get right into it, what is a flock camera? Flock camera is basically an automatic license plate reader. It's similar to what the OTA uses for turnpike collections. Essentially, if you're driving a vehicle, every time you pass one of these cameras, I guess it'd be over here, it's going to snap a picture of your vehicle and store it in the flock servers for 30 days. It's important to note that a license plate doesn't need to be visible on this to take a picture. Essentially, the technology that the flock camera uses, it recognizes that it's a car or vehicle of some sort, takes a photo, and stores information regarding that vehicle, which I'll be showing in a later slide. Now, that 30-day data storage that I mentioned, that's just the standard agreement. It can be modified based off of what the local law enforcement agency kind of negotiates with flock, but that's just kind of the standard one that they recommend. This is a nationwide system. It's used in every state in the country, used by thousands of law enforcement agencies at this point, rather. And it essentially enables law enforcement to look up photos in the database to aid in crime solving and prevention. The current cost to the city of Norman, if we did this program, would be $3,500 per year per camera. As far as Oklahoma is concerned, just for the local area at least, most places in Cleveland County have this installed. It's just Norman and maybe some of the more rural police departments that don't. So your data is probably already in the flock system in these areas. If you've been to Moore, Edmond, Oklahoma City, anywhere within the past 30 days, your data is probably already out there. Sorry to tell you, I'd be the bearer of bad news. All these systems are also connected via the cloud or the internet via the flock servers. So, if one agency flags a plate, then it could alert in a different agency that the vehicle is there. And essentially, it allows for a path of a vehicle to be determined. You could track a specific vehicle between cities if that's what you are wanting to do. And usually these cameras are set up in high traffic or high crime areas just because it's going to get the most information or do the most in those areas. On the right there, that's just where the city of Tulsa has 25 of their who knows how many flock cameras set up, and you can kind of see they put them in high traffic areas. So as far as it pertains to Norman, currently there's no agreement for flock cameras in the city of Norman with the Norman Police Department. The Norman PD has asked to get flock cameras multiple times in recent years. The most recent was in August of 2025. For those of you who are active in the Ward 6 Facebook group, you'll notice that that's when opinions were gathered on it. They were essentially requested. The city council was requested by the city to get information to see what we all thought about it. And that came out of an August study session. To my knowledge, it hasn't really been discussed since then. So I don't know if they're still collecting information or negotiating contracts, or if it's just on the back burner. I'm not sure where it's at. And as I stated, your vehicle's probably already in the flock system if you've driven north on I-35. So what information is that that's in the system? It's what you would expect, right? It's just your vehicle license plate, the date and time that the photo was taken, as well as details regarding your vehicle. Most commonly is going to be the make and model of your vehicle, the color of your vehicle, and if your vehicle has any modifications or noticeable damage. As I stated, the flock system doesn't really need your license plate to take a photo of your vehicle or recognize your unique vehicle. The screenshots provided here are directly from the flock website as examples of kind of like what their UI looks like. Now, we're going to quickly discuss the pros and the cons of the flock cameras, to be a little bit, fair to both sides. Like, even though I have my personal opinions on it, I do feel that for transparency's sake, we should acknowledge the other sides as well, so everyone can form their own opinions on this. And if this is something that we as a community or as a ward want, rather, the good, very basic, right? It helps solve crime, and it's good for crime prevention. And it leads to better cooperation between the law enforcement agencies. It's easier for Norman to work with more, or Oklahoma City on vehicle thefts would be the most notable example if these flock cameras are set up and working, across the I-35 corridor. On the other side, however, there is massive data concerns with this surveillance system, given its scope across the state and the nation. I'll cover a little bit more of that in the next slide. And then specifically for the city of Norman, there's also a cost to consider: $3,500 per year per camera. If you have, the 25 cameras that I showed in the Tulsa picture from earlier, that's $87,500 a year just for those sets of cameras. The city is already running out of deficit. Do we really need another 100 grand or so for cameras that we may or may not need as a community? Police department's already the biggest line item on the budget. Doesn't need to be even bigger given the current state of the general fund. And then there's the ugly or the unintended consequences of this, like how is this data used and who can access this data? As I stated, the good is relatively straightforward. This is the but at what cost portion of the argument. So as I say, the data is stored for 30 days, even if your vehicle's not flagged. So even if your vehicle's not suspected to be used in any crime, even if it's, everything's good and up to date on it, if you pass one of these cameras, you're probably going to be in that system for 30 days until that video is deleted. And that's so that if something does happen to your vehicle, supposedly, they at least have a previous 30-day record of it. Like if a vehicle's not reported stolen for a week, let's say, then they could look it up for the past week and see where it's been. The more nefarious side of these, if you're more pessimistic about these cameras, is this could be used to track your vehicle movement all around Norman for the next 30 days. So the locations you frequent, the churches or organizations that you're part of, your workplace, like all that could be reasonably assumed by tracking your location from the flock camera. Like, does the flock camera say this information specifically? No, but 2 + 2 = 4. You could infer it based off of the hotspots on where your vehicle is. And unlike your phone, you're like, look, let's get it out there, right? Your phone's going to track all this data anyway. Your phone's going to track everywhere you go. However, in order for local law enforcement agencies to access that data on your phone, they need a warrant signed by the judge. That's not the case for the flock camera system. It's all just governed by internal policies and whatever contract is set up. The ugly side of this data also is this data may be owned by the city or by the police department. However, it's stored on the flock company's servers. There have been numerous lawsuits over how this data is used, who this data is shared with. There's been allegations that it's been shared unlawfully with some federal agencies, and the cities that use it weren't made aware of it. And then there's also just general constitutional lawsuits over whether it's legal to be collecting and storing this data. And there's also a great concern on what these cameras may be used for in the future. Right now, it just takes a picture every time you pass it, but will that be modified to take a video in the future for even more data? What about audio? There's already kind of systems that flock is pushing where it could listen to gunshots. If it could listen for gunshots, can it listen to a conversation you're having if you just happen to be next to a flock camera and you don't know about it? That's a real concern for some people. And flock claims that they currently don't track individuals. But once again, 2 + 2 = 4, right? If, you're tracking a vehicle with this license plate and the owner of that license plate, you could reasonably infer that you're tracking the person, not just the vehicle. So what's my opinion on all this as a candidate? These cameras are not worth it just for the data privacy concerns alone. Even if this system was free, the potential abuse for your data, it greatly outweighs the benefit that I see for the city of Norman. If we were in a little bit more of a high crime area, or the city just happened to have money laying around for these cameras, hey, maybe that would be a much more detailed conversation we could have about this. But Norman is not facing a crime epidemic right now, and I don't even think we want to be spending money on this given the state of the budget to begin with. So we should just put this off to the side and not address it anytime soon. Once again, it's already tracked on your phone, but just because Apple, Google, and Samsung has this data doesn't mean that Flock should have it too, right? Like let's try to keep our data to us as much as possible. So, as I said in the beginning, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this presentation, feel free to email me at KyleForNorman.com, or also check out my website, at KyleForNorman.com. If you go to the YouTube link, there may or may not be other videos to similar campaign issues I have listed there. This is just the first one I made, but over the next couple days, I plan on just pumping these out, right? So if you don't see a video over the other things on my campaign website or my other stances, just step back in a few days or email me directly. So with that being said, thank you for watching. Have a good day.